Welcome back to the YTG Podcast.
Welcome.
You are new here. My name is Nico. I'm an automotive photographer and now amateur racing driver.
I'm Sean, and I am the owner of this lovely shed in Keysborough, YTG Young Timers Garage.
Here
Welcome.
on the weekly-ish YTG Podcast, we're going to give you the sort of inside scoop inside the automotive industry in Australia, as well as some fantastic stories, motorsport, anything car related. So, and a bit of electric car hate. Join us on another episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We're going to get straight into it. Targa Tasmania is back.
Targa Tasmania is back.
Tell us everything.
It's been off for what, 2 years?
It is 2 years. 2 or 3 years. Yeah, 2 years. And it's been a fairly rocky road. You know, it's been a difficult 2 or 3 years. Yeah, lots going on, obviously. We had a very, very difficult 2 years where there were
Couple of sadly
three bad accidents. It's been a very reflective few years where, you know, it's about really taking a look at what Targa stands for and saying, you know, we want to do this, you know, and if Targa is going to continue, it has to continue as Targa Tasmania.
Yeah.
You know, not as some watered down version.
No, absolutely.
But at the same time, you know, when you do have terrible accidents, which do happen in motorsport, I mean, you guys are around motorsport every day, you have to learn. Every accident has to be a stepping stone to a safer motorsport. And it is. In 99.9% of accidents, you learn something which then makes it safer for all the other people. And I think when Targa comes back in November this year, it will be special. It'll be great to see it back, and it will be a safer Targa. Motorsport will never be 100% safe.
No.
Ever.
Yeah.
And they all signed the waiver.
Yep, that's right.
Everyone signs a waiver, and everyone understands, every single competitor understands what they're getting into. And again, in any form of motorsport.
Would you say, though, sorry to interrupt, but would you say that sadly, the situations that pertain to those three, they were driver-induced, and one was a pretty freak situation when it was upside down.
Yeah.
That's pretty freaky and sad, isn't it, when you look at it?
You know, it just happens. It does happen. Yeah. It does happen, and you can look at any accident and say, why did it happen this way? Why didn't you do that? Why were you running with this type of setup? Or whatever it might be. There are always questions you can ask. And then you can always point to someone else who's doing exactly the same thing, with exactly the same car, with exactly the same setup, making exactly the same mistakes, if you want to call them mistakes, and getting away with it.
Yeah.
And it's just the nature of the sport. And we talked about this earlier on. You know, my daughter is very much into her horses, and I would, every day of the week, rather she got into a rally car than on a horse.
Wow.
Every single day of the week, I would rather she got into a rally car. You know, Targa will come back, and there will be maybe 400 cars that start Targa Tasmania this year.
Wow.
Who knows? They're restricted in terms of the numbers of competition cars. But it is one of the world's great motorsport events, and there is no question about that.
Yeah.
It is the type of event that you ask any world-class rally driver about events they want to do. And, you know, half of them will say, I want to do Targa Tasmania one day. It is that type of challenge. And it's got that sort of allure and that sort of, you know, mythical status of motorsport events, because it's something we don't see these days in motorsport. It's an endurance event. It's 5 or 6 days. It requires strategy. It requires bravery. It requires, you know, technical brilliance to get you through those days and to allow you to win it. And I can't wait to see it come back. And it'll look a little different, but it'll still be as enthralling as it always has been.
Yeah.
And it's on Tasmania.
Yeah.
You know? Comes for years. You Australians never really wanted anything to do with Tasmania, and Australia's full of beautiful places. I love coming here, and I love discovering parts of Australia. But I have to say, the greatest delight for me was when I went to Tasmania for the first time in, I think it was 2018, was the first Targa I covered, and just discovering the place. And that's the great thing about rallying, is you discover not just circuits. And I know you guys have had a great time in New Zealand, and it is different in New Zealand discovering the circuits there. But rallying gives you that opportunity to see some incredible places, to meet some incredible people, and to go to places to experience things that you wouldn't otherwise.
You were saying that. I remember listening to one of you were talking, and just the experiences of all those various, they were talking about what rallies each one, and you were talking to a couple of other drivers, and And I was listening, I was like, yeah, it's Formula One, because I'm such a Formula One junkie, but yeah, okay, it's all the glitzy, bright, but you look at some of these rallies that you go and you talk about, whether it be in the hills of, various parts of Europe or Eastern Europe, or, just they're really in the countryside. It's just so pure, not these beautiful highlighted race circuits. It's just so, and you see still with the airtime they get and the passion of people. It's awesome.
We're in a couple of months ago. We're in Kenya, and a Rally 1 car, the new top line rally cars are €1 million, million plus euros, wow. 1.2 million euros. And you're going to the first stage of the morning and you are being shaken to pieces by these roads. They're gravel roads and they're properly dusty tracks in the middle of nowhere. You come around the corner and there's a giraffe. Yeah. You go a little bit further and you have to stop because there's a herd of zebra running across the road in front of you.
That's crazy.
Spectacular. You're watching the baboons, scratching their balls in the sun.
Yeah, isn't that great? Isn't that amazing?
And then you come around the corner and there's a £1.2 million rally car sitting at the side of the road with a driver, a co-driver, working frantically to fix it in the middle of nowhere. And then the kids turn up and the locals turn up. And it's and many, many times people say, you wouldn't see Lewis Hamilton doing that with his Formula 1 car. But, obviously you wouldn't, because it's different.
It's a different thing.
It's different, but that's the great thing about rallying, is you see these boys doing... They're driving cars that are almost real cars. They're not real cars, but they're almost real cars. They look like real cars. On proper roads and in spectacular places. Yeah. And it's special. And going back to Tasmania, that's what Tasmania gives you. And it's so important for... I would say it's not just important for Australian motorsport, it's important for world motorsport that Targa Tasmania survives. Yeah. Because there is, in terms of rallying these days, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. You can look at Dakar and say that's an adventure, and it is a 2-week adventure, but that's very, very different.
Very.
Tarmac rallies, we've lost Mila Miglia, we've lost these incredible events.
Why is that, do you find? Is that just too much politics?
It's just not practical these days. It's not practical. Politics comes into it. But the Mila Miglia was what was it, 24 hours or something, and it was 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
And they averaged, 100 mile an hour.
Yeah.
100 mile an hour.
And it's a different event now.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was on, but a lot of Mila Miglia was on open roads. Through towns, through villages.
Yeah.
So that kind of, that endurance tarmac rallying just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So it's really important. It's important that Motorsport Australia get behind events like, and they're not. They haven't got behind Targa. They tried to close it down. They tried to kill it. And fortunately, the guys that run Targa have been brave enough to say, no, this event's too important. It's too important to the motorsport community. It's too important to the community of Tasmania. It's too important for worldwide motorsport, I think, to actually allow it to die, which is
good.
I'll tell you, Motorsport Australia wanted to happen.
Yeah.
Too important. We are going to work our tits off
Yep.
to make sure this event happens. And they did.
Yeah,
and it is going to happen.
Yeah.
So how are they doing it? Because Motorsport Australia is obviously not sanctioning it anymore. I know the AASA isn't.
Nope.
So how are they...
What's to stop you doing it? It's all about insurance at the end.
I was going to say, it would be
it's all about insurance. It's all about insurance.
Well, I suppose if they can get the insurance done to ride it, they don't need to have an association with any motorsport bodies.
Correct.
Screw
that.
That
is absolutely correct.
As long as the Tasmanian government's behind it, because they see it as beneficial, the infrastructure, the input of revenue.
They put a 5-year deal together.
There you go.
5-year deal. The Australian, the Tasmanian government behind it.
Well, that's actually quite good, because you know what? That's screw the BS political red tape. We want this to happen. We're intelligent people. We can make this happen. Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah. And it's been a long journey, and it's been a difficult journey. And it's like, you're a man that likes to, plough his own furrow. You like to do things your way, and that's what this is all about here, I guess. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes if you're passionate and you believe in your product, and you believe that there's a reason for you to do it. There's a real reason for you to do it. And Mark and his team at Targa,
well, it's credit to them.
They've put everything into it, and you just keep everything crossed that it goes successfly, and that they have a good event this year.
It was sad that when we thought it was over, I was like, okay, maybe the sadness of what had happened was just maybe too much, and then the greenies all of a sudden all the left won, and you're like, Oh, that's done.
I think there was a lot of... you know what it's like? When you have an issue, all of a sudden people see opportunities. They see opportunities to absolutely hammer you.
Yeah.
And I think the unfortunate 2 years they had with Targa gave certain people in certain quarters the opportunity to, to get on the soapbox, to preach, to say, why are you doing it this way? You know, we wouldn't have done it this way. Well, yeah, you probably would have, because
common sense has prevailed, and I think the big picture of, okay, we can maybe pull it in, make some changes, but we can still
maintain the DNA.
The tours are going to be quite strict, I heard, like real enforced speed limits. I mean, they always sort of were there, but, we just, in spirited drive, there's always some idiot which you unfortunately would ruin it, and that you can never change that. You can never change that. And even moving forward, you'll never change that. He'll bring the wrong car. One of my clients bought the Diablo. Why did you do that for? This is the wrong car to bring. And he learned, you don't bring a Diablo to a tour. Oh, mate. Yeah. And then all the luggage had to go on the other car, their friend's car. You can't put anything in there. Struggle to get on the bloody boat.
Yeah.
She didn't want to go in the car anymore.
Yeah.
She was like, I've had enough of this. And
you don't bring your wife in a Diablo. Come on.
That fuck up written all over it. So it was like, but again, it's.
But isn't that the great thing about these tours? And it's something that you don't find in too many other countries. Why not? It's a really good idea. If you're closing roads, why not utilise that road closure and allow some kind of controlled tour?
Yeah.
But you don't see it in too many other countries. But you do it very well here. I know that the Tarmac, Australian Tarmac Championship
Rally, isn't it?
They do a tour as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Well,
that was actually initially the daughter of.
That's right.
Yeah, and then they broke.
Yes, correct.
Brittany. Yeah, they broke off.
Is she still running it?
Yeah, and doing a really good job. Other lady, they're doing a very good job.
And do you know? And again, it's people. They like to cause trouble. They like to mix things up and stir. And there is this effort to almost pitch Targa against the Australian Tarmac. And
it's totally different.
It's too small. We're in too small an arena as well.
Yeah.
The minute you start fighting each other,
absolutely,
you're giving opportunities to the likes of others out there who do want to see you close down. You've got to work together to make these things as strong as you can.
Your standalone products in terms of services and experiences, you can operate in different spaces, and there's enough car lovers and enthusiasts that will go for them. That's been very, very successful. ATR, very successful.
And Brittany does a wonderful job.
100%.
She's a very dynamic lass, and she
used to work in the office next door to me.
It's like here. She knows her product. She knows her product inside out, and she's madly passionate about her product and the series and the brand that she's developed.
Even the other lady that's with her, she was with, she's lovely
Pam.
too. Pam, because they were next door in the office next to me when we bought Dutton, when we took over Targa.
That's right.
And then
Mark was there as well.
they were all right next door to me in the office, and I was working with them. And then you could just see they were very, very switched on, but then there was, as usual, internal political, all the bullshit, and you could see
Politics
that. And then
motorsport's a terrible thing,
crazy,
as we're seeing just now.
Unbelievable. And they went off and did their own thing, and you know what? Hats off to them. Two girls in a real male-dominated. A lot of people throwing rocks, but hey, she learned a lot from her dad.
Absolutely,
learned a lot. Very, very smart girls. So good on them.
Yeah, I photographed the ATR for a year.
That's right.
When COVID happened.
Yeah.
I was covering those events when COVID happened. Yeah.
That's the great thing about rallying, though. It does, from a photographer's point of view. Oh my goodness me! It gives you such wonderful opportunities, doesn't it?
Very much so. Different than the usual on the track.
You've got to be enormously creative, and I have a lot of respect for Formula One and for track photographers, because they do have to continually be creative. And some of them are enormously creative. But there's only so much you can do with a car going around a hairpin or whatever. Whereas rallying, it gives you so many opportunities.
There's just so much variety.
You could be doing the same rally for 20 years and take different pictures every year for 20 years.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is. I mean, are you finding, though, like I guess Formula One now, it's their largest season, or they're 25 or 6 races now in the season. Virtually every 2 weeks there's a race. Yeah. And are you finding though, with a lot of these Chinese brands and all of that, are there's push for other manufacturers to get into World Rally, or like with Formula One for 26, you got all these other brands are coming back in. Are you getting that more with that?
We're in trouble.
Sorry?
We're in trouble. We're in trouble because we're not attracting Chinese brands. We're not attracting the new...
But is that because they're... I mean, God forbid, you guys aren't going to go electric, are you?
No. Well, you're already hybrid, aren't you?
Well, you're not really, are you?
And this will be... You will love this. You will love this.
Oh.
And I have to say, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, he is a divisive character. FIA president.
Yeah.
I like him a lot, and I've known him for many years.
Okay.
And I like him a lot, and I respect him more than I like him, and I like him a lot.
Yep.
But again, politics is a strange thing, and Robert Reid, who was the World Championship co-driver with Richard Burns, he was his deputy head of, I can't remember, it was sport or something at the FIA, and the two of them have gone their separate ways, and there's obviously been quite a falling out there, and I don't know what's happened. I respect them both. I like them both, but it's Mohammed Ben Sulayem is a man that he's Marmite. You either like what he does or you don't. But he understands that motorsport really, if you go electric, you kill motorsport.
Yeah.
You kill it. It's not just about your drivers being able, it's part of it, being able to get the most out of any given machine around a track. It's more than that. It's an all-inclusive experience. It's essentially the explosion. And part of that, a big part of that, is the internal combustion engine. And that's why he's pushing hard to bring back the V10s.
Yeah.
And I applaud him for that.
That'd be big.
But in rallying, they went hybrid. And they realised that perhaps they'd gone the wrong way with it. And hybrid was supposedly the stepping stone to electric. That is now not going to happen.
Yeah.
So they've opened up the regulations for 2027, and they've
the cars are staying now as they are till 27.
Well, they've taken the hybrid out. They've
taken
the hybrid out.
So the current cars
are hybrids.
They were hybrids.
They were hybrids. They were hybrids.
What are they? 2 litres with the hybrid?
1.6. With
turbo 1.6 with
1.6 with a hybrid. So the hybrid would give them round about 550 horsepower. Enormous for a car that's 1,200 kilos.
Yeah.
A little bit more with a battery.
And they're still all-wheel drive.
Kilos. 4-wheel drive. Explosive power. Explosive power.
They're like a version of current Group V in a way.
They kind of are,
absolutely.
Actually. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the looks as well are kind of Group B looks. But the issue with the hybrid was that it was a third-party hybrid. It wasn't reliable.
Yeah.
When it didn't work, it wasn't catastrophic, but it cost time.
Sure.
And it was expensive. It was expensive to run. It was expensive for the teams. The teams were having then to employ specialist engineers to run the hybrids. There was then talk. These hybrids, when they failed, and they failed reasonably regularly, you could have an engineer between the stages from the hybrid company who could reset them. But then the hybrid company turned around and said, no, we can't do that in the future. You're going to have to pay to send these hybrid units back. And it's going to and it was going to cost millions.
They weren't making money doing it
and
that
the teams went, can't do this. Really can't do this. And at the same time, there's a move away from this in rallying, this supposed, this push for, and it was guaranteed, wasn't it? We were all going electric. That was the way it was going. But there was that creeping realisation that,
the whole world's
the whole world, hybrid, there's just so much, electric, there is so much that doesn't add up. So much that doesn't matter.
It's fucking dropped.
So we're looking at the regulations for 2027 and we're thinking if we go electric, we could kill this sport.
Yeah.
And the FIA come up with a very, very sensible approach, which is a kind of effectively a balance of performance approach. So if you want to bring an electric car in eventually, well, you can do that. If you want to stick with a 1.6 litre turbo, you can do that. And with torque meters, we will work out some sort of...
So make it more an even field.
And you can see, if you want to bring out, a high-tech diesel, go for it.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Go for it.
So they're going to open up the category in a sense that... Because how many manufacturers you got at the moment? You got
3.
What?
3, and we are on the point of losing. And I think
so. We got Hyundai,
Ford, and Ford is only a semi-factory
It's not even a proper factory works.
It's a semi-factory.
So you got Hyundai,
operation.
Ford, and Toyota. That's it.
Toyota are the only ones who are committed for 27. 27 is when we have our new regulations.
That's a whole new car, like 26 for Formula One in a sense.
Kind of, yeah. It will be a whole new car, but it'll be a cheaper car, an awful lot cheaper to run, cheaper to develop, and
but
the
not
idea,
not like this controlled shit that like V8s and NASCAR. That to me is really boring.
No. There'll be quite a bit of differentiation between them. There'll be space frame cars.
Yeah. Okay.
Which a lot of die-hard rally fans say, well, that goes against the DNA of rallying.
Yeah.
Rallying is road car chassis based. I'm not so sure. As long as they look like the road cars, I've got no issues with it.
Yeah, cool.
And if the space frames are safer, which they undoubtedly are, and they also give a bit more flexibility because you can scale the road cars to the space frames. But it looks like we're going that way. But we have a huge issue in that there is very little noise from new manufacturers. And we've only got 18 months to the new regulations. Nobody's starting to build a new car yet.
Wow.
Nobody is talking.
I talk about the new 27 car.
Hyundai are getting excited by WEC, enormously excited by WEC, are moving to WEC, and are very, very doubtful for the 27 regulations. In my opinion, they're doubtful for next year in the World Rally Championship. Then we have a crisis. Then we have a proper crisis.
Then it's, we
have a crisis.
You get these, because technically speaking, I mean, there is actually quite a lot of manufacturers out there. It's just there's a big part of that region, which is China, which they're not acknowledging.
And rallying is the perfect proving ground. You give the manufacturers what they want and they will come in droves.
Yeah.
But the problem is we don't really know what it is we want to give them in rallying. Rallying's lacking identity,
direction.
Which is a bit odd because it was the most definable motorsport for years.
Yeah.
What do you think has changed over? I mean, you think about it. I love rallying. No, I love Formula One. I'm an old diehard style, and to me, you know, I grew up with the age of the Carlos Sainz and the Salikas and Colin McRae's and Richard Burns and to me, you know, that was cars I could really relate to. Whereas now, to be honest, I'm not a massive fan of the rallying. I love it for the unbelievable. They are the best drivers in the world, but just don't feel them relatable anymore.
But you can't relate to a Volkswagen Polo. You can't relate to a Ford. You can't to a Ford Fiesta. You can't, as it used to be. Okay, it's the Ford Puma now. Hyundai i20.
Yeah.
You know, they're great cars. They're great road cars.
Yeah.
But the type of people that you know, in the 80s, 90s, that were mad, passionate rally fans, they wanted their 205 GTIs.
Yeah.
They wanted their Delta Integrales.
Yeah.
In some ways, Toyota have given them with the Yaris, the GR Yaris.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's an enormous success story. And
Yeah.
that kind of shows the way that we need to be going.
Yeah.
You know, you need to say to the manufacturers, use rallying as a marketing tool.
Yeah.
It's an engineering
Have
tool.
we complicated it too much?
In some ways.
Yeah.
In some ways. But we've complicated it, but we've not given them enough. The engineers need to be able to say, these are our cars. This is our tech. This is our ability. This is what we can do with this car.
But that's the problem. What I feel, and Captain, you would of a highest level see this, especially commentating over these years and seeing the way the brands and what's coming and going and the changes. Do you feel that we've become over-regulated to try and meet emissions, or like all this latest technology is saving the planet, but you're actually killing the sport for the pure essence of what it was, and you've over-regulated it so the cars have become too technological to become within that guidelines, but yet still provide power and the DNA of the sport. So you don't know who you are anymore. You just don't.
Once you
simplify it.
Once you overlay, you can overly complicate it. You can overly homogenize it. Yeah. Homogenize, so they all look the same, and then you lose your point of difference. You lose what people people want to see. Cars that make them go wow, you know. They want to, and if everything looks the same and everything looks a bit boring, then
that's the sad thing.
You know, you're struggling, and even though you're doing incredible things in incredible parts of the world, you know, the look of the car is really important, and we found that when the rules changed.
Sound.
The sound is enormously important.
I mean, the hybrid. I mean, that wouldn't have sounded like. It wouldn't. I mean, a
It
hybrid
didn't really
doesn't
matter because
sound...
the hybrid was just giving the engine a bit of a kick, so the car still sounded incredible with the hybrid.
But
what was bizarre was when they were going around the service park and you had this hum, and it was like, "What's that?" I was like,
because the engine.
you know, it was like, so they introduced the hybrid, and they introduced certain areas on the rally on the course, the rally route, where you had to run under EV power.
Right.
So, over the course of a weekend.
In the transport stages?
Transport.
Okay.
Transport, not in the stages, on the transport. So, a rally in the World Championship these days might be over 3 days, competitive, 330, 340 kilometres.
Yep.
But, in total it would be 1,500 kilometres with transports. The first rally they introduced hybrids, it was 800 metres of electric out of something like 1,400 kilometres.
What?
800 metres. And it was like, I don't really understand what this is all about. Why have we introduced hybrid?
We're just trying to tick the box to go, hey,
Good on them.
But then we got ridiculous situations. We went to Chile, and again, this is where the overregulation comes in, and the lack of understanding of why manufacturers need to be in this sport. We go to Chile, and Rally Chile, it's a good rally, but it's the best start. The start ceremony they put on is just phenomenal. Really? Phenomenal. They have this incredible arena they build, and the cars come through these doors that open onto this incredibly big stage. You've got huge crowds. They build almost like a runway that goes off the stage and down through the crowds. It's incredible.
Oh, that's cool.
Utterly incredible. And we had 2 years ago in Chile, we had a guy called Pedro Heller, a decent driver, really decent driver. It's his home event, very wealthy family. So they've got themselves a Rally 1 car for the weekend. And the Heller brothers, because they come from a business background, they understand. They understand marketing. They understand the need to build, excitement, drama, and all the rest. So the Hellers come up. There's this Pedro, I think, was driving the Rally 1 car, and his brother, Alberto, was driving a Rally 2 car, but they put the two of them up together, and it's great, and they're absolutely whipping this crowd into a frenzy, and they're almost practically starting riots. They're throwing all sorts of merch into the crowd, and it's going nuts, and I'm getting excited thinking, this is just the best thing ever. Music's pumping, cars sitting there, and then they're about to take off, and I'm thinking, just wait for this, because this will sound great. They'll give it a bit of beans on the throttle, and they're not going to go fast, but we'll hear the sound, hitting 9,000 revs. The bloody regulation said that on the start ramps, you had to be in electric mode. So they whipped this crowd into a frenzy. This fabulous-looking rally car comes off this ramp in electric mode.
Oh, that would have been such a downer.
It was like, and I spoke to the head of rallies at the FI the next day, and I said to him,
do that?
"What is going on there?" And he said, "That was the regulation car." I said, "But can you not see the wasted opportunity?"
Yeah.
And from a manufacturer's point of view, a marketing point of view, a strategic point, all those things, how wrong that was. But that's the regulation.
But who made that decision?
The FIA. The FIA, and it was part of this box ticking exercise.
Yeah.
The FIA do a lot that is good, and in particular, Mr. President does a lot that's good. But some of it, you just look at it and go.
And there's that, you reckon it's just typical, it's no different to politics. These are all lobbyists around him going, no, we should be doing this because it's better for this particular region of market.
Politicians that tell you how to live your life and have never lived the life that you lead.
Thank you.
And that is exactly the same thing in rallying. That is exactly the same thing in rallying, sadly. And I have a lot of sympathy, but I also think that we need to... The regulatory bodies, we need to strip it back.
Yeah.
We need to say...
The essence of what this is
about. What are the regulatory bodies? What were they there for in the first instance? They were there to maintain fair and equitable motorsport, to make sure the regulations were fairly applied, and to make sure no one was cheating. And that's what we need to go back to, because they've got too...
It's too
overregulated. It's just too involved, too overregulated, and too much red tape.
I didn't realise, 3 teams and that's it.
3 teams, and I am seriously worried that next year...
And you've got
we could
at
lose
least 10 or 15
teams.
manufacturers in China. Okay, Granted, they're all fucking fridges and stuff like that, so to speak. But you know what? You got to give credit where credit's due. I'm an old dinosaur. I put my hand up. But you have to give credit. When these things that they're making are far better than the European stuff, they're a fifth of the value for double the technology, and if not better. And you have to, okay, well, you've got to take notice and say, well, all right, well, what do you bring to the table? And I'm sure if you went to them, they would be, yeah, let's get into it. You know what I mean? Like
you'd have thought so.
The other people are probably too scared because they might fucking show them up. I mean, who knows? I don't know. I don't know what the politics are.
I don't know why we're not attracting new manufacturers.
I mean, how many manufacturers we've got, and how many manufacturers over the period of life that you've been involved in terms of the sport, and how it's just...
But what worries me, Sean, is that you talk about these Chinese manufacturers, and they're disruptors.
100%.
You look at brands... the traditional brands that have established themselves in selling all sorts of models, and they will tell you, you have to be in motorsport to build your brand, to build your image, to build whatever. Whereas the Chinese manufacturers are getting there, are doing what they have to do purely by building cars that are good value and are reliable. And
they're not in WEC.
Why would they want to spend hundreds of millions on motorsport when they're already doing a job? But we have to say to them,
you have to get them in there to maybe. Again, I didn't go to the recent motor show. We were invited. They were really wanting our brand to be there, and good on Craig and the crew. They did an amazing job, but no, it was a majority. It was all electric cars, and again. I get it. I understand it. I don't have to like it, but I get it and I acknowledge it.
There's a place for it. There's a place for electric cars, and the great thing about the Chinese is that they are doing things differently, and that they can have a look at the situation and they can sit back and they can say, okay, well, we'll take a bit of that, we'll take a bit of that. But then when they have to apply themselves and when they have to come up with creative, innovative solutions, they do it. And my understanding is it's BYD have come up with some new tech that is their technology, which allows fast charging in 5 minutes. That's
game changing.
You turn up, it's like putting a tank of petrol in, isn't it? That will change things, and it will totally change things. But we do need to get some of these Chinese companies involved in motorsport, but we're not offering motorsport that appeals to them, that they need. They don't need the motorsport that we've got.
I mean, you got Toyota and the Endurances and things like that, and obviously they've had great success in the past, but, these manufacturers like Hyundai and Toyota and Ford, well, you've got that hybrid EV style. Can't you incorporate it, maybe run it as a second division of a Ford or a Toyota, so you got like a proper, ICE and then a hybrid maybe technology to bring it in.
If rallying survives, it will be with internal combustion.
It has to be. You just can't. Look at that joke, the electric car, the electric Formula E, and they're laughing, and you got them here going through Monaco. That's it, it's gone past. Then you hear the Formula One. You don't even hear it. See it, you just hear it, and you're like, and then they're trying to make the burnouts, and then you see them just laughing. But there's no noise.
In rallying, at the top end of rallying, we've had sustainable fuels for the past 4 or 5 years, and we've made nothing off it. We've made nothing off it. We allow the greenies to shout at us and tell us that we're killing the planet and all this. But we've had this asset that we could have
really utilised better,
effectively, and we haven't. For whatever reason, we haven't. That company, strangely, have just gone bust, which is a real shame because...
you wonder whether it's a bit of ulterior motives there. Let's not push that. We need to push this agenda.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
And the electric agenda is
the agenda, not this. Let's not do about this.
Absolutely.
Let's not. Oh, well, hang on. But this can be proven. No, we've got enough weight and push this, squash him out of the way.
That's what's happened. The guys that ran, I can't remember what the name of the fuel company was, but they were good lads. They were young lads that were very, very energetic and very clever. Very clever chemists.
Is that the P1
fuels? Thank
you.
They
went bust.
They've gone bust. They've gone bust. P1 fuels have gone bust.
There you go.
That is so sad. Because that should have been, logically, when you look at the problem that we actually have, that's the solution. That was the solution.
Sustainable fuels, and it's like Lubricant who make sustainable lubricants. You know, those two together,
Yes.
all your engine oils could be fossil-free engine oils.
Yes.
All your fuel can be sustainable fuel.
Yep. Done.
That's done.
No more CO2 problem.
But it's
And
not the
that is
agenda.
what will happen if Mr. President brings back V10s. It will be with
Sustainable
non-fossil
fuels.
fuel lubricants and sustainable fuels.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it is a workable solution. But maybe it's 10 years away, 15 years away. That's why P1 have gone bust. I don't know.
And I just think it's just that too much strength in that EV push that we can't have that, because that's just, look at how much we've been pushing, and all of a sudden, we just need to, if we can't buy them, let's just squash them. And that's the sad thing, because like you said, that was in front of you, and that could have messed.
It was expensive. Right, it was expensive, but you know, it was expensive because they didn't have scale.
Exactly.
But
You know,
you look after the pinnacle of rallying in the world, right? That's your pinnacle. Your WRC is your pinnacle, as F1 is the pinnacle of track motorsport. So this is what I struggle with now. Well, if you got the biggest checkbook, you got the biggest checkbook. Just fucking knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Bring the best, latest technologies to the sport, because it all filters into road cars, eventually some way, some shape, somehow. And that's more relatable to our fan base or our customers. And, okay, the second or third tiers, okay, you can put cost caps, but we're the pinnacle. We should be able to blank check, do whatever the fuck
That'd
we
be
want.
great. Yeah, that
Like
would
it
be.
used to be back in the day, cigarette sponsoring and all that rubbish. No, it was a whole different ball game. Now we've just become too restricted that if you didn't have so much theatre with the rally cars, would you have the spectacle of what it is? Really, I mean, Formula One's really boring, really. I mean, once Lewis retires, I'm done with it. I'm not going to look at it anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. I want to see how much 2026 is going to make a regular change. But, you know, from a guy that grew up, you know, still remembering when Senna passed, all of those watching the real old school now, you can't overtake. And what do? You got to rely on DRS.
Yeah.
You got to be in a second just to get all that fucking trickery. Why can't you just dive in and go and, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. I'm not really
But
enjoying
it's
the
not
sport
difficult
anymore.
to make circuit racing entertaining. This is what gets me. It's
So hard to overtake.
Rallying has got particular problems and particular issues, but rallying is not a race. Rallying
it's
is a time
not.
trial.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's two very different
Very
sporting
true.
disciplines.
Very true.
But circuit racing for me, you know, you look at MotoGP and you look at how close that is and how entertaining that is.
Yeah.
You know,
But they're not running
the
hybrids
cars-
in their bikes, are they?
there are some hybrid bikes out there, but I don't know whether they are. But my point is that, you know, that you can. the problem with Formula One is the cars are too similar, the circuits are too similar. That, you know, you need to make these cars a little edgier. You need to make these cars so that if you commit into a corner, if you get it fractionally wrong, that car's off. You know, make them twitchier, make them a little more difficult to drive. They're too technologically advanced these days, and they're too close.
They've
to
got
each
to
other.
save on everything. As Lewis says, and even Fernando saying, look, we're old school roads. I've now got to save the fuel, save the tyres, save conserve, save the battery, do this. I just want to go out there and just fucking blast.
I think
numbers
that
game
can
now.
be solved in Formula One, but I think the problems we have in rallying are deeper than that, sadly. Way deeper than that.
Is rally?
Really?
Would you say rally's dying?
I'm not saying it's dying, but
it must be
I did
overregulated
an
and it's
interview-
killing
I
the
did an
manufacturer coming
interview
in then.
with one of the WRC bosses in one of the team principals in Kenya 2 weeks ago. 2 months ago, whatever it was, month ago, that left me feeling sick in the pit of my stomach. And I
That's
said
sad.
to him afterwards, I said, Rich, oops, just giving him away who it was.
We'll edit that out.
I said, you know, what you've said, because it wasn't just what he was saying, it was his demeanour.
Yeah, he's
But-
accepting
but
something.
I said, I'm concerned for the future of rallying from what you've been telling me here. He said, well, Colin, he said, rallying will always be here. He said, it might be slightly different, but I'm thinking, what is he on about? I fear that there is something brewing right now which is going to be fairly big and fairly
Detrimental.
fairly devastating, I think, for rallying. And do you know, I suspect it's all linked to Hyundai. I think if Hyundai pull out, I think we have a different sport next year.
Really? Hyundai had
sport.
that much pull.
Yeah, well, because we're left with Toyota.
But Toyota's been in the sport forever.
Fully committed. No, they haven't. They went away to try Formula One for a while.
Oh, they didn't rally then, did they?
They didn't rally.
There was pure focus on...
Big success in rallying, pulled out, went to Formula One. And this is the thing, there are always options. And this is what Hyundai are finding. You know, Hyundai had a successful year last year. They won the Drivers' Championship for the first time ever. Okay, they didn't win the manufacturers, but it came down to the final stage of the final day of the season.
Yeah.
It was that close. But you know, there are always options for manufacturers. And you know, manufacturers like Hyundai, who are very, very ambitious, who have a very well-funded motorsport project, who have a very clever boss in Cyril Abiteboul, who used to be the Renault boss in Formula One. Very, very, very clever man indeed. A man that I love talking to. He's very open. You can challenge him, and he'll come back at you, and it's great. But they have options, and while they have options, you know, we have to make sure that rallying, Formula One builds value. There's enormous value in Formula One now. You know, and they've, in some ways they've been lucky, but they've built value into it.
Do you like the way it's gone? Do you think Liberty's done an amazing job?
I don't care about Formula. I'll be totally honest. I love your passion for it. I don't give a shit about Formula One. You know, whenever I watch it,
I'm not really that way anymore.
I want to know if I'm interested. I want to know. I love things like the Lawson Sonoda. What's his name? Sonoda. Is that his name? I love that. And that to me, I'm interested in that. And then I watched the result from Japan because I wanted to know whether Lawson could finish ahead of him. You know, I loved the stuff at the weekend with that silly, what's his name, Horner, coming out with his piece of paper. Look. Yeah, that just shows that your boy was in the wrong, but I appreciate the fact you're defending him. But no, I'm not interested. I don't care about Formula One. But I do respect the fact that the sport has taken itself from being on its arse to being the most valuable motorsport in the world. And there's something that every discipline can learn from that. What I fear is that rallying hasn't learned. And I don't know whose fault that is. In fact, I do know whose fault it is.
So just the old guards haven't changed or haven't adapted to the marketplace?
We've just not had a dynamic enough promoter. You know, Liberty Media were incredibly dynamic. They were in some ways a bit lucky, but they were dynamic. They understood what they wanted to do. They invested in their product. They understood their audience. They understood which audience they wanted to get, which they wanted.
Nailed it, mate.
And they went out and they grabbed them.
They got it.
You know, because they talked to people. They talked to the franchisees, to the fans. They talked to everyone. They understood their sport inside out. I don't believe in rallying we have a promoter that's anywhere near that calibre. And I think the sport has suffered because of it. Which will upset a few people, but I don't care. I've upset them too many times in the past. They know exactly what I think of them. I don't care. I'm tired of pussyfooting around. You know, when someone is not doing the job they should be doing.
100%.
They shouldn't be afraid of people asking questions.
Absolutely, 100%.
If you're afraid of people asking questions, you're hiding something.
Correct.
You're hiding something.
100%.
You know.
And do you want to lose? I mean, really, this was. I mean, like I said, I can think of the rallying when I really loved it. I can't relate to the cars now. I mean, not that I can relate to hybrid Ferraris or Astons, that sort of stuff, but it's saying that you look at it now and you're like, it's still got the theatre because of the way they drive and the way it's still unbelievable. But Hyundai. Well, I can't really relate to Hyundai. I get Hyundai. I think it's done an amazing job with its i30, the end program.
The end program's
amazing what they've done.
What a success story.
What a success. If anything, the Euro should be looking at what these people are doing. Really, if anything, they're too scared. And, come back with how good you are. Show them how good you are. You know what I mean? And that's the sad thing. Like you said, there's opportunities. You go, there's so many manufacturers out there. Why aren't you going? And who've got racing DNA from rally culture, history, that you're not going knocking back on and go back to the earmark of it.
And at the end of the day, that comes down to value.
It
comes down to value.
And
as team boss said to me, he said, look, for manufacturers to invest in the WRC, it will be cheaper in 2027 with the new regulations, but it's not a cheap exercise. You've got to invest hundreds of millions over the course of 4 or 5 years. And he said they're not investing anymore in rallying because of the technical abilities, the engineering abilities. That is not why they're investing in rallying. They invest in rallying because of the promotional value it gives them.
It's a marketing exercise.
It's a marketing exercise. And what he said to me was, right now, no manufacturer will invest in the WRC because there's just not the value. And there is uncertainty about the promoter, because the promoter's put itself up for sale. At a time where the sport is potentially in crisis, the promoter says...
That doesn't show good stability.
You come with 500 million euros and we're out.
Yeah.
Not great. Not great. Not great.
Manufacturers look at that and go, well, what are we going to invest in? You've got shaky sand.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's exactly
But then maybe you get like a driver, like a... was it Teams, Toka or whatever, Teams... organisation or whatever it is. Or for the manufacturers, so they can get together to truly control the sport in a sense, to maybe try and hang on. Let's take control of this instead of like what Tasmania, in a sense, said, screw all your motorsport clubs and all that. We want to make this happen. Let's just all right. You get X amount of board. All right, let's get value in this. We can control it. We own the sport, and we can do it for us.
That's happened before in rallying. It happened before, and Toyota more or less took over in the 90s. And they promoted the sport for a little while. I mean, it's not what they wanted to do, but they paid for the TV. They paid for it, and we need value. We need something that's relatable, as you say. We need a sport that is fit for purpose. And that's a difficult one to define. And I'd be totally honest with you. I'd rip it all up and start again. I would. For me, rallying will struggle going forward because there are so many things that are changing that are working against rallying. Yeah. There are so many things. It's difficult. Forest stages. Australia is one, the UK is another, New Zealand.
It's just losing the forest stages?
Losing forest stages. It's difficult.
Is that we're just cutting them down?
The forests don't want us anymore.
I was going to say, they save the trees and all that shit, isn't it? Yeah.
It's not just that. It's, in days gone by, the forestry commissions, they made money from chopping trees down, but the rallies were about the only people that wanted to go into the forest and actually pay to use those forest roads. Yeah. Nowadays you've got mountain bikers, you've got e-bikers, you've got all sorts, and they just don't want it. They don't need the complications that come with rallying. Communities, in a lot of instances, don't want the disruption that rally brings. Yeah. So we need to come up with a formula that addresses all of that. And right now the rules perhaps don't allow us to do that. So I would say, look, what is rallying about? Rallying's about adventure. Rally is about brilliant engineering. It's about cars that are relatable. It's about realism, because these are, it is real sort of, it's boy racing, but at a different level. Yeah. So let's take the DNA of rallying. Let's take the 4 or 5 immovable strands of DNA that make rallying what it is, and let's rip everything else up, and let's build almost a new sport around that DNA. And it will look like rallying. It will be, to most of us, just an evolution of rallying. For the purists, it'll be an abomination, but I don't care about them. I don't care about them either. Yeah. Because, we stick with the purists and the sport dies.
True.
But, you go again, we talked a lot on the last episode about New Zealand and how wonderful the rallying community and the motorsport community is in New Zealand. I did a couple of events out there with a couple of lads who they're promoters themselves. And they resurrected an event called the Daybreaker. Great event, and it runs from literally sun up to sunset, sunrise to sunset. 4 in the morning, I think we left the service park, and we finished the rally at 6 or 7 in the evening. Great event. But they were very progressive, the guys that ran this event, and they gave the communities more reasons to say, we have to have your rally here, than to say, we don't want your rally here. And that is rare. That is really, really rare. But they worked very, very hard with the local communities. They involved the local schools. We had all of the local schools out, and the schools were helping with marshalling. They were helping with the regroup areas. They were helping with the community engagement projects, the barbecues. And it was just beautiful to see. And these guys worked really bloody hard to put on a world-class event with a great turnout, great value for the customers. Competitors, I would rather call them customers. You call them customers, you treat them better. You call them competitors, and you get an FIA, Motorsport Australia's type approach. But they're customers, and these boys did a fantastic job. Ran that event for 2 years, worked their butts off for 2 years to re-establish this event. And what happened? They got dropped from the New Zealand Rally Championship calendar because they were troublemakers. They were disruptive. They were doing things differently. They were doing things that will save our sport.
Yeah, I was going to say, things against the norm.
Against the norm. Yeah. And it's the traditionalists that didn't like it. They didn't like, and lots of things.
You've got
lots
to
of
move
reasons.
with the times in a way.
And it really, really, really annoyed me. I thought, these guys are working so hard and putting on a world-class event, and the reward they get from that is they get chopped from the calendar. And they get... And literally, what did that do? Well, they could have run their event this year, but you've got to be part of the New Zealand Rally Championship, really, to give you the volume, to make
exposure and coverage,
and so the event won't run this year, and it's a bloody disgrace that it won't run. But for me, it was indicative of the old school that we talk about.
They're worried it's going to take the thunder away.
The traditionalists will kill. Sadly, our sport. We need to be progressive. We need to look to the future. We need to address the very, very obvious issues the sport has. And while we ignore them, all we do is we just blindly head towards that cliff. And eventually that cliff will appear and the sport will go.
And maybe acknowledging that EV isn't the way, accepting that's not the way, instead of pushing back against the grain and going, well, there's a lot of other ways we can save the planet and still have this. Like I said, it's there, the technology's there.
But EV maybe it's not the solution, but it could well form part of the solution.
But maybe are they not looking at us in black? They're too black and white. If it can't be this, then we can't do anything else. Well, hang on, you're killing it then.
So this is the great thing about this regulation, potential regulation for 2027 that the FIA have come up with, and I absolutely applaud them for it. And it comes from Dakar, and I think we may have talked about this last time. Dakar, because they had a bigger degree of autonomy because they were outside of the FIA until a year or two ago. They could do their own thing, and Peugeot wanted to come along, so they changed the rules to make a two-wheel drive buggy. The car to have effectively on the Dakar. They gave them wider wheels, they gave them different tyre pressures, all sorts of things. You thought a two-wheel drive buggy couldn't win the Dakar, but it did win it. Audi then comes along, and they allow Audi to compete in this unbelievable thing that's got two DTM engines, 4 electric engines, all sorts of stuff on it. But they regulated the competition to allow the others to have a chance, and you have to be open to new ideas. You have to be open. You can't just say, right, that is the way we're going to do it. It's electric, or it's whatever it might be. You have to be open to various ideas,
and that's probably really the changing of the old guard.
That's what it has to be. It has to be, and we need to be progressive. And if we're not progressive, then
that's sad.
Yeah, but it's not all doom and gloom.
Well, hopefully
there's concern. I have concern.
Listen.
I have a lot of concern. But
and you would see it at a highest level because you're calling it, you're seeing the progression, you're seeing either demise or you're seeing the stagnation of your sport, and you calling it from your angle because you're dealing with the drivers and the teams one-on-one, and you're seeing it in all different assets and different perspectives. You would see it at quite a different level to, say, someone else who's just in one side of the garage or from the FIA side. You know what I mean? You're seeing it from like a
more realistic side of it.
A drone sort of thing in a way, and you're going to go, well...
and again, there are people within the promoter who will potentially hear this and they'll say, why are you being negative about our sport?
You're not being negative. You're not.
No, but they'll say I am. I'm being realistic.
There's a negative, there's a realist. I mean, I've had this my whole life. You're being negative. No, I'm not, mate. I'm just dealing in common sense. And a bit of realistic about how we can make this work, because this is for all of us and for the next generation that will look back at the Group Bs and the fucking people touching the car and getting their fingers ripped off as it's going past at 200 kilometres an hour, and they're like, fucking getting smashed in the face by rocks. Like, that's crazy shit. That's crazy stuff.
That passion that we talked about. And
it's
mad. It's mad. We never want to see that again, but we want to see that level of...
Well, it's still kind of... There's videos from Monaco last year with all of the
fireworks.
Yeah, the fireworks, the flares.
That's great.
Oh my God.
That was the closest thing we've had to Group B for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's why it bugs me when I get accused of being negative. It's like, I am still as madly passionate about this sport, perhaps more so than I have ever been.
Because you can see where it's going.
But there's nothing wrong with being concerned.
Yes,
you know, and there's nothing wrong with saying, well, actually, you know, we need to take a deeper look. We're not brilliant. We're not perfect. We're not doing everything right in our sport. And anyone that thinks we are should not be in this sport, you know, because it's just wrong. It's wrong that there are people in certain positions who will not have a word said against what's being done.
But
and for me, that's like, well, you know, okay, fine. You know,
you don't have
got
enough
more influence
teams
to say than I've got, so we'll just go your way, and
we'll
all end up in the dole queue at some point. Sadly, you know.
and it's sad, like you said, there's not enough manufacturers or not enough pool with enough influence to say, well, hang on, no.
But
it's like, where's where we're going to go?
No, and you know, Toyota have a huge amount of influence, and they're very clued up. Hyundai are also incredibly clued up in terms of the value they're trying to generate for the sport, the marketing value. And I know that they've spoken openly. As I say, I spoke to this team principal, and he was very open, and it was an open interview we did with him. It was an on-record interview, and he was very, very concerned and very critical of
the way
the direction, and the direction certain things were going in. But it's not beyond redemption. It is utterly savable. We have the best sport in the world. We have the best opportunity in the world. We have the best showroom in the world for manufacturers. You've got a lovely showroom, but it's nothing compared to Kenya. It's nothing compared, you know, a rally car with giraffes, with zebras, with elephants.
What a marketing brochure.
My God. You know, Sweden, you know, minus 40 degrees. You show what your car can do in minus 40 degrees. I'll show you what it can do. You know, we have the best showroom in the world. We just don't have the best salesman. Simple as that. It's as simple as that.
It's a great analogy.
We need a Shawnee Baker there. We do. But we do need a Shawnee Baker.
No, surely there's a round guy in Kenya that can.
He wouldn't listen.
Let me tell you something here. You look at some of the most successful sports recently, and you look at Formula One, and there was an identifiable figure at the top. You know, what was the guy's name? I forget his name. There was Bernie for years, but then there was the guy from Dominicali, all these people. And then you look at MotoGP, you look at soccer, you even look at sports like snooker and darts. And there's always been the rah-rah boy. We don't have a rah-rah boy in rallying.
You don't.
We don't have a rah-rah girl.
No.
We don't have anyone that's there saying, this is the greatest sport in the world. You know, if Dominicali wanted to come to a rally, would he know who to phone up? And say, look, you know, head of rallying, I want to come and watch a rally. Probably not. But if the head of rallying wanted to go to a Formula One event, he would know who to phone. He would know. And if he wanted to go to a MotoGP event, if he wanted to go to a Formula E event with old, what's his name? The Italian fella that runs that, you know, they would know who to call. We need a salesman. We need a sales strategy. We need someone to go out and sell our sport for us.
Maybe getting one of the heroes from the rally days, or they can't relate to them anymore.
100%. No, they can. There are
think
people
they
there.
would.
There are Petter Solberg, one of the greatest showmen in recent history. Andrea Adamo, who enjoys success for Hyundai. Amazing characters, amazingly energetic, dynamic.
People I would think get them back into it to lead the fight.
Jost Capito ran a Formula One team, and he can open any door in any motor manufacturer anywhere in the world. And he gets treated like a pariah. Capito tried to get some tickets for an event last year. I think it was Rally Poland. May have been another one. May have been what's the other one? Latvia that we went to. I can't remember. But he was on his motorbike, on his big KTM. He was doing a tour of Europe. And he's turning up at this event on his big motorbike with his girlfriend on her big KTM. Phones up someone who will remain anonymous and says, look, I'm coming, can you get me some tickets? And this was through a third party. So this guy phones up the people in charge and says, look, Jost Capito, ex-Formula One boss, most successful team boss in rallying, hugely respected in motorsport. He's coming on, can we get him a few tickets? Yeah. There's a couple of general entrance tickets.
Go GA.
And this fella went, I am not going to insult him by giving him these VIP tickets. No. I'm not giving him VIP tickets.
Idiots.
Isn't it amazing?
How can you have so little marketing
No, it's just
Understand?
That's ego
decency.
and
That's respect
arrogance
and
and
decency.
stupidness. That's ego and arrogance and stupidness.
I suspect there's an awful lot. I'm thinking of the person who said no now, and all of those words apply to them.
It's
All
I'm
of
a pretty
all of
simple
those
bloke in a
words.
shed in Keysborough.
It's not hard to understand.
It's not hard to understand when you're just dealing with people and emotions, and generally ego is what fuck most of it up. And it's just egos of, why didn't I come up with that, or why wouldn't we come up with this? Don't worry about who came up with it.
But
This fixed the problem, let's go.
And for me, it's just indicative. It's just indicative of issues that clearly are there and that need to be addressed. And yeah, maybe they are being addressed because the promoters put itself up for sale. So maybe they've realised,
Yeah,
you know, maybe our time is done. And
look how quickly Liberty turned F1 around, right? It's not hard. It wouldn't take much. It wouldn't take much, but it's doable.
But it's my point is, it's not irredeemable at all. And because we have so many assets there that can sell the sport.
Huge.
And in some ways I am quite excited about the future because of that. But at the same time, you know, there's so many stories that come out.
There's so many brands that you think of that have been there, got racing pedigree history, that they were there, then they dropped out, or maybe it's Skoda, but they're in the second tier or something.
So if I and I go, Jari-Matti Latvala, who's the boss at Toyota, he has said if I and I go at the end of this year, we will have to go to the second tier next year, as we'll have to effectively scrap the top tier.
And just focus on the second tier, like your GP2 and GP3.
The second tier becomes the top tier.
Basically the top tier.
So what does that do? It means we've got more privateer teams, clearly, because there's a lot more privateers running what they call Rally 2 cars, which are... If you went into the forest and a Rally 2 car being driven by any of our top drivers came past you, you would take a step back. Because these cars are spectacular, driven in the right hands, in the right way. You know, they are good cars, but the minute you do that, you've got Skoda, you've got Citroen, who already have Rally 2 cars. So you've got Skoda, Citroen, Hyundai, even though they pulled out, there's still a Rally 2 car available. There's a Polo still out there, Polo R5 car. You've got Volkswagen still out there that could compete at the top level. You've obviously got Fords, you've obviously got Toyotas. So you've got potentially 5 or 6 manufacturers.
Straight out the gate,
And then you've got privateers, who could all compete, and that may well happen. And Latvala clearly is concerned about that. He said it publicly this week in Finland that if Hyundai pull out, there is every chance that we'll have to go to this Rally 2 next year as our top tier.
So
it may well be may well be the saviour of rallying. That might well be what saves us.
And then just restart.
Because, it might well be. It's a restart. It's a situation. You know. The lack of affordability in rallying means that we don't have local privateers anymore.
Because a factory team's hundreds of millions of dollars.
You're flying around the world.
To rent a rally car, a Rally 1 car,
which is
for
the
an event, top level, 400 to €500,000
for the weekend.
Euros for the weekend. You know, it used to be
that's not
the old World Rally car,
180,000.
And if you did a deal for the full season, you could probably get one at 140,000 a rally. A rally. So you're still talking millions. But there are just no local privateers anymore.
Can't afford that. That's ridiculous.
And the minute we go to Rally 2, you know, you've got the young lad from Italy. Well, he might podium in Monte Carlo. You've got the young guy from Spain. You know, a good run with a few things going his way. He might get a podium on Rally Spain. And it just
opens
all of a sudden makes it interesting again. You get those real human stories. You get proper competition. So I am concerned, but if we go to Rally 2 next year, that might not be a bad thing. That might not be a bad thing at all. It'll be disruptive, for sure. But it might not be a bad thing.
Do you feel would be the sport taking a step back in order to move a step forward?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it a step? What is the sport? What is the sport? Is it the competitive side? Is it the technological side? Because it takes a step back technologically, You know, these Rally 1 cars are the safest, fastest cars we've ever had. Absolutely. But the competition suffers because of it, because there's only a very small handful of drivers who can win. So we take a step back on the technological side, but we take a step forward in terms of opening up the competition, the sporting side. And again, we've got carried away with the technology.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think it's just gone so much
back to the people?
Yeah,
let's
it's
make
lost.
these cars relatable. Let's give the drivers a chance of winning.
Yep.
Let's give Rally Chile, Rally Argentina, Rally Spain, Rally New Zealand the opportunity for a New Zealander, an Argentinian, a Chilean to actually be the hero that weekend.
Is it like just why motorsport is... entertainment business.
Yeah.
It is the entertainment business, and we just happen to be racing cars. That's the entertainment.
Yeah.
Supercars is a great example.
It's just a pure entertainment business. But again, it's so controlled now, and that's the sad thing. You look at the pure racing of the earlier cars, and just all the different manufacturers, and it was just when. Are we getting too much technology? Honestly, you listen to the boys in the cars, the Formula One, and all the different modes, and no, I've got to conserve the battery, and we'll wait because you hit the button too soon and go to stretch mode 8. That's full beans for that one lap, and then you're like, it's so much technology.
Why are we watching the sport? Why are we watching it? We're watching it
for entertainment,
for the characters, for the entertainment,
exactly.
For the and you're not watching it for this technical brilliance that they get with this DRS or this as you say, whatever they press on the body.
You're relying on the fucking the flap opening to give you that extra 8 miles past him.
Yeah.
What happened to just pure fucking
pure
racing,
pure racing skill? Yeah.
You know what I mean? What happened to that? And the old schoolers like Alonso, Vettel, and Lewis, and the 07, 08 was the last of the real cars, which it was, and they changed. And it's just.
But it's all about recognising, I think, that it is the sport and it is the sporting aspect of it, the competing. It's what entertains people. It's what draws people in. But it's also about understanding that the teams, the manufacturers, the sponsors, they're customers. They're customers of the governing bodies, effectively.
Yeah.
They're customers of the promoters.
Yes.
They're customers. And if they're customers, then we have to give them what they want. You always give the customer what they want, surely. Mm-hmm. And if we ignore them as being customers, then we're set up to fail.
Yeah, we're not. The governing bodies seeming to listen, but they seem to be listening to the fans of what they think the fans want. But really,
that's no bad thing. That's no bad thing if they're listening to fans. I've got no issues with them listening to fans.
But some of the fans, maybe that new generation, sort of losing a bit of that essence of what the sport was about. You think? I mean, I look at a lot of especially at late when you see. I think Netflix has hurt Formula One, but it's also brought an amazing demographic to it, so it's out of control. Mate, you've got to give credit. Liberty are very smart, but to the old dinosaurs like me, I hate the way the sport's gone, but they're very smart. Their shareholders are loving it. Very intelligent. Bernie was the smartest man ever selling to them. Very, very smart.
No, that's absolutely true. And if you listen to rally fans, I'm not sure we could save the sport. I think you would understand perhaps where some of the issues are, but I don't think rally fans would give you the green light to make the changes that are necessary to save the sport.
Wow.
Because I don't think they would. I think rally fans are the most traditional fans in the world. The minute you try to change things, I mean, the amount of nonsense...
But there's changed so much over the years, though,
But space frame chassis, for me, the purists will jump up and down and say they've got to be road car, chassis based. But what does it change? What does it change in terms of the spectacle? The car looks the same. Yeah. Looks the same. Gives the manufacturer more of what he wants because the manufacturer can scale, the manufacturer can use a car that doesn't fit into the category. Yeah. So what is the issue? What is the issue with with going space frame? I don't see any issue whatsoever. But if you did a poll of rally fans, they'd have said, don't move to space frame.
Yeah.
And it would never have happened if you'd allowed them to dictate the direction you were going in. So you have to, this is my point, is you have to take those elements that make it unique, and you have to take them, and that is what the rally fans love. But you can't be completely dictated to by your fan base. And if Formula One had been dictated to 10 years ago, or whenever they
Netflix wouldn't have happened.
But Netflix would never have happened.
Yeah.
Would never have happened. And it would never have evolved into the absolute behemoth that it is now.
You know, countries
and I'm not being
up.
detrimental about rally fans. I love rally fans. I love their passion, and I love the fact that they're so committed to the sport, and so many of them are so knowledgeable. But we are traditionalists as rally fans, and we need to be a whole load more progressive. But you need to listen to rally fans, and then you need to have someone who's clever enough to say, yeah, well, we'll take that, but this is how we're going to round it. This is how we're going to mould it. This is how we're going to adapt it to make it fit for purpose in the 21st century. Because rallying is not fit for purpose in the 21st century, as it stands. And it needs to change. It needs to change.
Well, on that eye-opening note, we're about to hit an hour and a half.
Oh, can you believe that? Is that right?
Can you believe that?
What time is that?
Wow.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
Wow, that's
we
great.
could literally do a
Awesome.
4-hour podcast.
Honestly, that's fantastic.
But we've all got work to do tomorrow morning.
Absolutely. Well, you got to catch a business
you
class
gotta catch a
flight.
flight,
So.
I'm at the back of the plane. I turn right, by the way.
Everyone turns right when we get out of Adelaide.
Bloody hell. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed the return of
absolutely.
Colin. So
Thank
good.
you so much.
Boys,
Thank
it's
you.
been a joy. I
Thank you.
love coming out here.
Thank you so
Speaking
much.
to you
It's
boys.
really
It's a
great to have
joy.
you on.
Thank
Privilege
you.
for us. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All the
Have a
best.
good week. Ciao, ciao.